Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are listening to our YouTube big interview. I'm joined by Craig Purr from Howden Insurance, who's a premier member of this association. And we're here to obviously find out a little bit more about Craig and give you guys listening into our YouTube channel and wherever you're listening in, it may be on one of the social medias, the opportunity to get to know him a little bit better, just as we're going to find out a little bit about him as well today. So welcome, Craig. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be here, and hello to everybody watching.
Thanks so much, Craig. We'll go straight in, shall we? Obviously, I've mentioned you're a premier member of the
Yes.
association as the company as well as yourself, and you're based out of Cambridge, East Anglia, and that's the predominant area that you cover. But I know, obviously,
Yes.
Howden have a much wider audience. However, I want to find out a little bit more about you for the moment, if I can.
Okay.
I'd love to
Yeah,
know
of
a
course.
little bit about your backstory. So, for those listening in, can you give us a little bit of an opportunity to get to know Craig Platt?
Yeah, sure. So I started my insurance career back in 2013. I started working for probably quite a well-known company in the UK called Hastings Direct, working in a call centre, doing some sort of customer service, yeah, general inquiries, amendments, things like that. Quickly worked my way into dealing with renewals and then sales as well. Picked up insurance pretty well, and became sort of a trainer a mentor, and a complaints champion. So really, I'd done quite a lot within, and had a lot of experience within Hastings Direct. I then received a contact from a recruiter who was recruiting for a high street broking firm called A Plan, and I quite like the idea of the more personal side of things rather than just being a voice on the end of the telephone. And again, a call center is a bit like a modern day factory. Calls come in, calls go out, and there's very little personal service. It's all really based on hitting your KPIs and making sure calls are dealt with as fast as possible. So the idea of high street broking and face to face sort of hit a chord. So yeah, I got a job at A Plan. We opened a brand new branch in Bury St Edmunds. Um, no clients at all. So quite a lot of pressure on that first year, and yeah, so it was new business, selling car and home insurance, a little bit of travel, and some van insurance to local residents, in the area. Got promoted there to an office manager role after a couple of years. So looked after a small team of 5 people, which was again another experience that I hadn't had. Then I met my partner, who I've been with now since 2019. We've got a child and another one on the way. And she lives.
Congratulations.
Thank you ever so much. So it was good. Yeah, so we're going to have another boy. So my poor partner, she's got 3 guys running around the house. But so she lived in Cambridge, and whilst actually in the grand scheme of things, Bury St Edmunds to Cambridge isn't a huge distance. At the time, the commute wasn't really suitable for me. So I moved to Cambridge and got a new job in a little town called Cottenham, just outside of Cambridge. And I was there dealing with some sports professionals and high net worth individuals, a lot of footballers, rugby players, some radio DJs, TV personalities, etc. Quite a different type of client to what I'd been dealing with, and actually it was quite. It's a bit strange because you're dealing with these high profile celebrities, and it can be a bit unsure. How do I speak to these people? But actually, they are just people at the end of the day. Within there, I started my movement into commercial insurance as well, sort of some small SME package policies, and also we had a big book of taxi clients there. Um, as I say, I started in 2019. Of course, 2020 rolls around, and in March we get COVID lockdowns, and of course a lot of taxis. We do, I would say, a big taxi book, and a lot of business fell off, and we got about 9, 12 months down the line, and the manager said, if things don't start to improve with business, we might have to start having some difficult conversations. And I was, the last one in, and I know how these conversations go. I'd have been the first one out. So I got a job at another local. I found a job at another local brokerage, a brokerage called One Broker. They've now been bought by the larger Johnston Group, and that's really where my commercial insurance career sort of skyrocketed, if you will. I've got through them, I've done my Cert CII, so qualification, my certification in insurance, part of the Chartered Insurance Institute. So our professional body, if you will, and I learned a lot dealing with SME sort of businesses, and then moved into sort of the larger corporate and commercial side of things, and things were great there. They've done a lot for me, did a lot for my family, and really helped with my growth professionally, and probably I'd say personally as well. But then I was ready for the next step, and they had plans for my next step, but unfortunately my timescales for that were much quicker. And I didn't get the opportunities that I perhaps needed. So fast forward now to the 1st of December 2025, and I started my role here at Howden. I'm a commercial account executive. I'm here to build a presence now within the Cambridgeshire area and sort of the fringe areas as well. That's not to say I can't have clients outside of Cambridgeshire, but it's much more difficult to perhaps travel to someone that's in Scotland, for example, or in Wales, down in Devon. And I like to provide sort of the service, sort of a face-to-face service where I can. Again, you can do things via Zoom or Teams, but it's always nice to be able to visit a client, and I think clients do appreciate that personal service because brokers aren't doing that as often as they should be nowadays. So yeah, here I am, and of course now proud Premier member of TET BCA as well.
Thank you very much for that lovely backstory of your work career, and obviously getting sort of like moving along the journey that as you went. I get what you're saying about call centres. It's more of like a conveyor belt system, isn't it? You're sort of call in,
Absolutely.
call out, call in, call out, and there's no. If you're somebody who really enjoys the personal service and that more sort of face to face opportunity that comes with a lot of roles out there now, it's something that a call centre doesn't facilitate, does it? It's literally the other end of
No.
the phone.
I get, for example, in customer service, we had sort of handling times, which were targets, and the idea was to get a call in, deal with give them a nice warm welcome, complete your data protection checks, find out what the customer needed, deal with that, get them off the phone, and leave notes within 5 minutes and 20 seconds on average.
Wow. Yeah.
How valued would you feel
Yeah.
being rushed out of a call center when you've been on hold trying to get through in the first instance for, let's say, 35, 40 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite
Very,
frustrating.
very impersonal.
Yeah. And I can see why, as I say, I can certainly see why you as somebody who likes to have that more sort of hands-on approach with your
Absolutely.
clients. It's a really important step that you made there to get out of that and into something more suitable for that really sort of ticks the boxes for you. Now, before we went on air here, you also told me a little bit about something that you and I share in common, which is
Yeah.
we like to pick up a cue every now and again and play a few games of pool, and more importantly for you as well, snooker. Snooker was something that you really got into, and you were telling me that you also done
Yeah.
some
So,
really.
as I was about, I'd say probably 16 years of old and 16 years of age, sorry. And my stepfather played snooker at a club quite local to where we lived down in Devon then. So, talking 20 years ago now. And I said I'd like to come along one day. So, came along and met the guys in his team and started knocking a few balls around. And before you know it, I've got my own team. So I played in another team for a while, but took on my own team and did quite well through the league. I then went on a little bit further and got my snooker, the EASB qualification as a referee. As a qualified referee, snooker referee by the age of 18. I don't know many 18-year-olds that would maybe do that. I don't know many, lots of people that play snooker actually, to be fair, anymore. But then I sort of moved on from that, and at once I sort of 18, 19, I found that I spent more times in pubs rather than clubs. So I sort of traded in the snooker game for the pool game, and used to play that probably 4 or 5 times a week. Not necessarily competitively, but getting some practice in. But again, started off in a team. Did very well in the league. We got promoted. I then left that team and started my own. Didn't enjoy that as much. Preferred to be a player rather than the leader. And yeah, just played that for a number of years. But again, not so much anymore. But perhaps if I'm your way or your mine, we could have a game sometime.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you ever end up moving this way, you have to hook me up because I captain the team. So
Yeah. There you go.
know,
Fantastic.
you could be our secret weapon moving
Yeah.
forward. You never know.
I don't know
Anyway,
about that anymore.
anyway, let's get on to Howden. You brought us up to date to joining
Yeah.
Howden. I'd love to know, and I'm sure the listeners listening in here today would love to know how you, as a company, not only create resilience and again risk of in that resilience and alleviate that risk, but also bulletproof for business. Because I know businesses, and as you know, part of the association, when we're talking to members of the association, one of our onboarding processes is to have insurance, so that we can openly recommend, knowing that not only is the company protected, but they're also protecting their clients by being insured. So knowing that, obviously, it's an important part of our side of things, and onboarding with us. One of the key things I'd love to know about is a little bit more detail of how you go about bulletproofing the businesses, what sort of insurances you deal with, a brief sort of overview of the kind of things that you get involved with on a day-to-day, or sometimes not necessarily a day-to-day basis, but the occasional thing that sort of comes at you from an insurance requirement that you can handle.
Okay, so I mean, first of all, sort of protection. First thing, as you say, businesses need insurance, and again, I think to give everyone peace of mind, as an insurance broker, we are required by law, not just to have employers' liability. We of course we have public liability as well, but we also have professional indemnity, which we are required to have as an insurance broker. So we've got a very high level of that. So things don't generally go wrong. Sometimes things can go wrong, and this is why brokers and insurers have professional indemnity. If I provide some advice that maybe turns out to not be totally accurate, or perhaps I haven't understood something, and an insurer refuses to pay the claim based on that, our professional indemnity insurance pays out on that. Again, things like that don't happen, but we have to have it. And I use myself as an example, as a generalization, because of course I can't poke at other people. But yes, no, you're in safe hands. I've got 13 years in the industry. Lots of change. We keep up to date with regulatory changes. The regulator, the FCA, states that we have to complete 35 hours of CPD, or continuous professional development, a year. And of course, I have that qualification, that CII that I mentioned earlier as well. I'm actually a member of the Cambridge Chartered Insurance Council. So I have to hold myself in high standards to be part of that, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Howden has been around since 1994. It's not my business. I not old enough to have started a business that long ago. But it started off with, 3 people and a dog in an office in London. And today we're one of the largest insurance brokers in the UK. I've got a very ambitious target of being one of the top 3 brokers in the world by 2030. We've got, obviously, the UK. We've got offices just opened up in Scotland as well, which is great. So we're broadening horizons there. We've got offices in the UAE. We've got one in Singapore. We've got offices in Europe, also Latin America. And we've just moved into the United States of America as well. So we've got a very good global reach, and being sort of a large insurance broker, that does matter, and the reason it matters is my clients get a personal relationship driven advice experience from myself, and that is then supported by placement strength and specialist teams and our claims experience that us Howden as a global broker hold. So when I speak about insurance itself, I'm not just speaking from my experience, but I draw on the volume of claims, uh, risk insights, market access that come from working within an organisation that handles complex risks every day. Essentially, what that means to my clients is I've got leverage to negotiate better wordings, better terms, and better outcomes. If something ever does go wrong, and again, they rarely do, but sometimes they do, and again, not necessarily from us, but sometimes insurers get things wrong, so we can really sort of beat them over the head with a stick, if you will. My clients get personal service of a professional executive that they know, backed with the scale and resources of a major broker in the world. Um, so you mentioned types of policies that I might come
Yeah,
across.
sort of
So
what's the general sort of things that you're dealing on a day-to-day basis, and some of the more obscure things. Because I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, obviously, prior to Howden becoming a premier member here at the association here for England, and I know when we first spoke, you was talking about the sort of more international coverage. We're an international
yeah,
community. So, a lot of the people that I'd spoken to up until now, I didn't have the direct referral space to actually refer somebody for insurance purposes. So when somebody said, "Well, I want to join the association," but they may be in France or they may be in Europe, somewhere in Europe,
yeah,
I didn't have someone who I could reach out to in that space on the international scene to be able to cover, because a lot of the insurance companies out there are purely predominantly for the UK based organisations, so they don't go further than the UK. So
sure.
obviously that's one of the things that I sort of spotted when you and I first spoke. But it's great to have that referral network of Howden being that international organisation now, because
Yeah.
I can come to you, you can then obviously pass it on to a relevant office if it's outside the UK.
Yeah,
Um,
no, of course. I mean, what we need to consider is with things like that, different jurisdictions have different laws,
of course,
different regulations on how uh, well, you say law and insurance works. So many of the large insurers that we work with, and we're not working with unregulated insurers. We only work with regulated firms with good, strong financial standing. But they will have offices. So, name like a company like Aviva, for example,
yeah,
very good relationship with Aviva, one of the largest insurers in the world. They have offices all around the world.
yeah,
So it depends on how it works. If there's maybe a bit of UK exposure, but you've got a company in the UK that actually deals with companies worldwide, we can speak to to Aviva, and they then speak to their offices
yeah,
within wherever whatever territory it might be,
yeah,
because when you source employers liability, you have to source it locally. So I couldn't source employers liability for an office in let's say Belgium, for
yeah,
example. It would
yeah,
have to be sourced in Belgium because
yeah,
of laws, regulations, etc. However, I could arrange public liability for a company doing business worldwide.
yeah,
So that's not an issue. But again, it depends on where, of course, it's based as well. And again, if you've got a company based in Singapore, there's no point me dealing with it because we've got
yeah.
offices in Singapore. Do you
Makes
see what I
sense.
mean? So
Yeah, makes sense.
it's always worth an ask first of all, and then I can make the relevant inquiries to see where that would best be suited. Because at the end of the day, what's most important is what best suits our clients, not what's best for us, what's easiest for us. That doesn't matter. We're paid to do a job, and to be the trusted advisor of our clients. So that's the main thing. What works for the client?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
What's in their best interest?
with that trusted badge behind you now, being a premier member, that just reinforces that trust element. So obviously you talk about business insurance, and that comes in many different
Yes.
formats. You've got public liability, you've mentioned professional indemnity, you've mentioned. Obviously, there is other insurances around the
Yeah.
business. We've got lots of new things happening, and obviously, when you think about what's going on online, and there's lots of insurance to protect you against that as well. And I know from previous experience and chatting to you that you've got things in place. There's there's also, I mean, things like a business, for instance, comes to you. Give me a quick example. A business comes to you. They've got fleet management. They've got a fleet of vehicles. They want those vehicles insured. Can you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, there's not a lot Howden can't do.
Mm,
I mean, we've got teams that, I mean, so yes, we'll do, so, yeah, so your business, maybe business packages, commercial combined packages, covering, contents, equipment, stock, liabilities, as we've said. But yeah, no, absolutely. We can do fleet insurance, goods in transit, marine cargo. Bit of a tricky scenario around the Middle East at the minute with marine cargo,
yes, of
but,
course.
again, we're keeping open communications with the insurers and making sure that our clients are updated if anything impacts them, such as war risks. We can do cyber insurance, a very, very important thing for everyone to have nowadays. People aren't generally going out stealing or burgling houses anymore because there's the physical risk of that, one, them getting hurt, two, them getting arrested. What people are doing now is sitting at home on the sofa and they're stealing data, money, credentials, all through the power of a laptop.
Yeah,
And the majority of that will come from the mistake of someone clicking a malicious link
yeah,
or opening an attachment that they shouldn't have done.
yeah,
We do management liability. What is that, I hear you ask? So management liability covers directors and officers against their personal liability. It covers company legal liability. So we're covering or insuring the entity rather than the individuals that run that entity. And also it includes employment practices liability. That's a very important one. Most MLP, I don't have the exact figures to hand, but most MLP or management liability package claims come from the employment practices side. Um, we used to have, I guess, what we'd call ambulance chasers. We'd ask you, have you been involved in an accident? Whiplash reforms changed that. What solicitors are doing now are going out and saying, has your employer treated you correctly? And there's new legislation coming in on the 1st of April, which protects the employee more.
mm,
So it doesn't necessarily mean that an employer's done something wrong for an allegation to be made.
no,
But once an allegation is made, you then have to defend that in a court
yeah,
or a tribunal.
yeah,
And the defence costs come run into the tens of thousands of pounds very, very quickly because solicitors aren't cheap.
no. And of course,
So we do that.
if you lose that tribunal, it's going to cost you even more, isn't it? So
Absolutely, so it's very important to it. So you could get a no-win, no-fee solicitor maybe to try and help you out, or yeah, but what if they haven't got any experience or very little experience?
mm,
I'd much rather a multi-million-pound insurance company
take the
back in that solicitor
backing that up.
with a lot
Yeah,
of experience. So it's important for us to look at things like that.
brilliant.
Because again, the personal liability of directors is not limited if you work for a limited company.
Yeah,
The limited part is for the shareholders. Their liability is limited. As a director, you have unlimited liability, and your personal assets could be at risk as well,
yeah,
which of
absolutely.
course nobody wants to see. So we do that. We do engineering inspection as well. So, for example, if you have any lifting equipment, any air receiving equipment, anything that is regulated to be inspected, we can look at that for you. And again, it depends on regulations, depend on whether they're lifting items or people. For
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
under the LOLA regulation,
mm,
any equipment that lifts people must be inspected every 6 months. If it's
yeah,
goods or items, it must be every 12 months. We can do marine. We can do. We've got a team that does super yachts. Not my bag, but there's a team in Howden that do that. Agriculture, another one that we can do. Another big one at the moment is drones. We can look at drone
yeah,
insurance as well. That's a big thing, whether that be commercial or personal.
mm,
And we've got a little bit in aviation and space as well. Don't do too much space stuff. We're not sending we're not insuring the rockets, but there's sort of bits that maybe people that are sending rockets into space rely on. For
yeah,
example, manufacturing areas for satellites and the like. So
yeah,
um, there's not a lot that we can't do. But you mentioned also sort of what type of clients do we have? So we got big transport haulage firms to manufacturing firms. We've also got. I love something weird and wonderful, a niche, and I love a startup. And where I work at the moment is a big sort of innovation hub where lots of businesses work, and we sometimes get referrals from a company that helps find funding for companies or startups. And a couple of examples that I've really been impressed with was hyper fast quantum scaling. I had to ask AI to explain to me like I was a 10-year old because I had no idea what that was, and it's too much to sort of explain. You can't be an expert of everyone's business, but you can ask the right questions to find out about people's business and where their exposures are. Another one, and this one really blew me away, was a gentleman had started a business, and again, just a brand new startup, and they were genetically modifying plants to go into the ground to take up contaminants such as heavy metals, so that the ground could then be used for housing and farming in the future. And I absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah, I should
Could you
interview you.
imagine?
It's just blown mine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. So,
but
that's
yeah,
that's really good thing. Great thing about insurance is everybody needs insurance, one aspect or another, and there's just so much out there. There's so
yeah,
many innovators, so many great ideas, but also every business is different. And even if it's not an innovative or a great idea, and it's a firm that's been manufacturing for 70 years, their story is still fantastic, and it's
yeah,
great to speak to these people and really learn how their business works and what keeps them up at night. What is the risk, and we protect that risk. If the worst thing were to happen, if you wake up on a Monday morning, the worst thing ever happens, we make sure that business can continue.
brilliant. That's an absolute brilliant way to wrap that part of it up. And thank you so much for that
No,
detailed information. Because I know that I've heard it so many times where people go, "It never happened to me." Yeah, it never happened to me. I don't
that's the
need
one we give with
insurance. I
cyber.
don't need that. And ultimately, I've always said, well, if you give me six numbers for tomorrow night's or this evening's lottery, or five numbers plus the two bonus balls, because obviously you can see the future, because no one knows what the future holds, and it's always best to
I,
make sure that we are protected, reassure, obviously with resilience against the risk, and bulletproof our business and ourselves, as you quite rightly say, to make sure that if tomorrow the worst thing happens, things can still continue. So that was a introduction into obviously how people can find you. So you've given them a decent amount of information on the different things that you cover. So no matter what it is out there, there's
yep,
probably Howden will be able to, at least worst case scenario, signpost you to one of their subsidiaries, or one of the insurance companies. But Howden are a company that can deliver all kinds of insurance. So for those listening into this YouTube channel, um, how do people find you? Where do you hang out? What's your hangout spots?
well, I'm at the moment. I'm out doing I'm trying to build my network. So I'm new into the Howden role, and I can't just bring previous clients with me.
Mm,
There's restrictive covenants in place, and I'd get in a lot of trouble legally if I were doing that. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to do as much networking as possible, and I've started a lot of physical networking. I'm out in groups, but yeah, your organisation was brought to my attention by a gentleman who I go to networking events with, and him and yourself and other people have shown me the value of online networking. So I'm trying to be out and about as much as I can, whether it be, as I say, in a physical presence or a virtual presence. um, LinkedIn is probably a good place to start, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah,
There's not many people with my name, Craig, and my surname Purr, Purr. I think I did some research on that 10 years ago, and I think there was less than two people in the United States of America with the same name.
right.
So quite uncommon.
So
um,
easier to find. Yeah, absolutely.
yes. So you can find me there. I've got my email address at work. Do you do you
Yeah.
want me to send some bits over, or do you
Well,
want me
no, if
to?
you tell the people listening in, perfect, and that would be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So
So if anyone wants to get in touch, it's Craig, Craig dot Purr at Howden, Howden insurance. So it's craig.purr@howdeninsurance.co.uk. I also have a mobile number, 07825 5887876.
Fantastic.
07825 5887876.
And if you're looking for Craig on LinkedIn, it's very easy in the URL. Just put obviously your linkedin.com/in/Craig and you'll find him. You'll go straight to his account. Do you hang out on Facebook? Any other places like that?
Do you know what? I am not a big social media user at all.
No.
Um, there's a lot of doom and gloom on social media, sadly. There's some nice stuff. I mean, I don't generally post. I've always really sort of struggled with it. I'll sort of be I think they call it a lurker. I'll see
Mm,
what friends and family are doing and the like, but I don't really post stuff on social media. And
that's
for me, when I started my role as an account executive, I promised myself I'd have a big drive at using LinkedIn, make sure that I'm
mm,
active on there, trying to comment on
brilliant
other people
platform.
and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I am seeing that it is very, very good for connections, seeing what people are doing, how maybe I can help. But yeah, I do get some outreach on it as well, which is really
Mm,
good. So it's trying to get that muscle memory of just making sure that I'm using it all the time. But at the same time, I do try and when I'm on holiday or at the weekends, I do try and shut
yeah,
off from it because otherwise I
yeah,
find myself working when I
mm,
should be not working.
mm. No, that's fair. Fair point. I'm an advocate for that. Take some time out to make sure
Yeah,
that you get your opportunity to have a bit of your own time because you can recharge the batteries and come back fighting fit on the Monday, can't you? So weekends are
absolutely right.
important to take a little bit more of a back seat. Um, the so LinkedIn's the best place to find you. You've got
Yeah,
Craig's mobile number, you've got Craig's email address, and of course you can find Craig in our Trusted Business Community directory as well, which is obviously Howden will feature there. So please reach out to if you can't
yeah,
find him or you need to get hold of anybody to do with insurance and you can't find Craig personally, reach out to me, Sean Hewitt at Trusted Business Community Association, and I'll put you in touch. For those listening in, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, as well as obviously then you can look and once you subscribe, you can look at all the other videos that we've done with many of the other members, along with some great keynote speeches from our guests on our meetings who have got some brilliant tips and tricks and advice and guidance for you in within our TTBCA YouTube channel. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Craig, for being and joining me today for the big interview. And this has been another edition of the big interview. Thanks for listening.
thanks for having me, Sean.